Well, thank you. Thank you, brother. It is incredible being here and not only seeing so many faces that we've seen over the decades we spent, spreading the gospel of basketball, because it was about starting by evangelizing many, many, many years ago. There was always a vision. We had no idea how far and where it would lead, but we knew that there was an opportunity to do something really special on the continent. We always believed in the power of basketball as a tool, as a conduit to not only self-realization, but how we can make it impact the community at large. And that's what this man has been doing. I was with Will Voigt in Cairo. Will is coaching Zamalek now. We were having dinner and he is recounting a trip. You send them to some park in Nigeria where the car broke down and they were stranded for a couple of years. I'm talking about that just because when we talk about building the entire ecosystem, I'm so proud to see so many people that we've worked with for so many years and seeing them now doing big things. When I talk about the Basketball Africa League is going to become one of the best professional leagues in the world, what gives me confidence is because we have people like him, like Lou, Ajo played his part, everybody and the big partners that are coming to support the endeavors, the Rwanda Development Board and Visit Rwanda. There's a reason why we chose to be in this country, and we will talk about it earlier. This is a microcosm that is a proof of what we can do in Africa when we put our minds and hearts together and bringing the expertise that we've garnered from around the world. So I'm very, very glad to be here. We are going to showcase through this league what Luol always said, what Africa has best to offer. Thank you.
So first up, we have some incredible panelists, all leaders in their respective industries, and I'm honored to be in this discussion with them today. Our first panelist to join Amadou on stage. Amadou. No problem.
Amadou, I must have to keep coaching you.
I know. I'll get there.
Slowly. Our first panelist to join Amadou on stage is a highly accomplished international corporate lawyer and a member of the London Stock Exchange Africa Advisory Board. She's currently the Senior Director of the Africa Investment Forum, a position she's held since 2019 after serving as the Director General of the National Pension Commission of Nigeria. Please join me in welcoming Chinelo Anohu. Our final panelist was a two-time NBA All-Star during his illustrious 15 years in a career in the NBA, and is currently the president of the South Sudan Basketball Federation, a social activist and a humanitarian, and also a founder of the Luol Deng Foundation. Please welcome Luol Deng. I wanted to start with a question to all the panelists. As we think about ways to move the continent forward through sports, infrastructure investment is essential. From a macro level, what does that look like to you? And I'll begin with you, Amadou. What elements are most critical, and given the scale and scope required, what should be the primary focus in the near term?
Thank you, Asha, and good to see you again. I think for us, it was always important to not skip steps. We can have these big ideas, but we need to keep to the fundamentals. I think first, we have to make sure that we get all stakeholders, especially governments, because we know that in Africa, most of the environment is still government controlled, so we have to get government buy-in. We have to make sure that sport cease to be seen as just recreational activities. And this is why over the past, certainly 5 years, we stepped up our rhetoric in terms of talking about sports as an economic growth engine. I think once we paint that picture, coupled that with work that's been done for decades, I think that will make the journey, or that would help us get faster to where we want to be. Certainly, after you engage, now you gotta, make sports accessible to young people. How do we use sports as a conduit, not only to get young people to engage in positive social activities, but also dream about, what they can do using sport, even if they are not players. It's not just about the players on the court. When we talk about this industry that we want to build, we are looking for talent, and that talent is in the primary schools across countries in Africa. How you get young people, boys and girls, to think about what they can contribute in building an industry, a robust sports industry in Africa that will create jobs and also contribute to GDPs of countries. So for us, those are the fundamentals. Make sure that we have buy-in from government, then we make sports accessible to everybody, and then you build the basic infrastructure, and you build also local expertise that can, make sure that sustain all the efforts that would be put into the work.
Janelle, I'm coming to you. Yes, we talk about infrastructure investment, but what's most critical in terms of the whole sports ecosystem?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Goa and Baal, for making this possible. And it's very timely, this focus on sports as a business. And on a general infrastructure perspective, my idea of progress would be from the entire value chain, not just in the standardization of football pitches, basketball pitches, or also the enabling powering systems for those stadia. And when you move from there, you move to the societal approach of how sports can be utilized to promote the social cohesion that we see constantly lacking on the continent. And then it also, then you segue into, I think Carl talked about talent. It's not just finding the talent, you have to hone the talent, and you have to have the facilities for honing that talent. You have to harness that talent, and then you have to ensure that that talent remains sustainable. Once that happens, then you can then look into what we are very proud of on the Africa Investment Forum, which is promoting sports as a business catalyst. We look at sports, and I'll probably talk about that a bit later, how many countries classify sports as recreation. I'm happy to see that in Nigeria, they've taken the bold step of declassifying sports as a recreation. Right now, it is a business. And the Bureau of Statistics has then the ability to allocate the required resources to be able to invest in it, to ensure that it is useful for the continent. And once we move from there and focus on the infrastructure development for the sports, it then becomes easier for us to harness what has naturally occurred on the continent for honing and move into the merchandising of it, and not just the sale of goods, but how about the manufacturing of goods? How about looking at the infrastructure that will place the factories that produce the things we love to wear, from the sneakers to the shirts to the face caps? How many of these are produced on the continent vis-a-vis the usage? And once we can look at that, then we begin to harness the huge potential in revenues in the sports. Thank you.
It's interesting you say that, Chinelo, because the Nigerian basketball teams wear Afa, a local Nigerian brand. I'm coming to you, Luol. South Sudan has the tallest population on the African continent. How do you harness that? What is your primary focus right now in terms of getting that talent to the biggest stage in the world?
Yeah, first of all, let me just say I'm really happy to be here. I want to say how proud I am of Masai and Amadou and all the faces that I hear that I've seen growing up as a player and being here now. No matter what we share up here today, we always have to recognize how far we've come as a continent in basketball and in sports. Basketball is in a better place today than it was when Hakeem Olajuwon and Manute played in a continent, then when Luol, Deng played, and now when Giannis, Embiid, and all these guys are there. So I'm very thankful to be in a position, or for us to be here today. But to speak a little bit about just everything in general, and I'll go into your question. I won't take too much time, Asha. I know how you are.
No problem.
But first, let's talk. If we say that assuming that the funding is there and the resources are there, I would say, quality facilities and quality coaching, and including women in sports. I think it's very important for the continent. If you look at the players that are African players that are coming out of Africa in total, a lot of times the players are going abroad, growing up abroad, and making it to the big league. We end up calling them, Greek freak like Giannis. We can produce a lot of athletes like that from the continent if we really focus. But the main thing I would say, focusing on coaching would be important. To go into South Sudan and being, a nation that's been through a lot and the youngest nation in the world, for me, going back to South Sudan, I didn't create anything new. It's the same thing that we're talking about. It's really supporting local companies that already exist. We're not inventing anything new. It's resources coming in and giving people an opportunity to make something out of what they have. For me, going back into South Sudan, I knew that the talent was there. I didn't create anything that didn't exist. I just came in. We organized what we can do as a nation in sports, and people are seeing the results. And that's really across the board in the continent of Africa. The talent is there. It's unlimited talent. You could find in any sports you think of, you could find talent. It's about resources and really focusing on putting it together to produce, just like everyone said here on stage. So that's really what I would say that we need to focus on. And I'm very lucky that, I come from a nation of people that are hungry, and the same as across the board in the continent. It's really about showing the support and being there, and the results will come out.
Thank you so much, Luol, for that. Now, coming to you, Amadou, thinking about development and growth strategies, as progress is made, how do you ensure these changes are sustainable?
First of all, just to rebound on what Luol was saying, and Chinelu also, the motivation is the incredible amount of talent that we all know exists in the continent, and then continuing to find ways to not only harness that talent, but develop that local expertise that is going to harness that talent. As great as it is in the early days, we brought everybody here, all the big names in terms of coaches, people who know how to teach the game, and people who know how to sell the game. But we gotta have young Africans. This is extremely critical. The capacity building piece, we gotta have our own. We're gonna continue to invite the rest of the world to come and do the training, but you gotta grow it organically here. And focus on building something out of that talent here locally. Having a platform where this talent can now be showcased, and this talent can now contribute to creating an entertainment product. Because at the end of the day, it's about that. So we can talk about business. I always said that we didn't come in 2010 or 2003 and say, let's start a professional basketball league. So all those steps that were taken before, now you have a product, and that brings me to the Basketball Africa League. Look at it as the place where all the work and all the different elements that we are talking about across the continent can be highlighted and showcased. Last year, when we launched the league here, I was talking about you have a feeling of relief that Masai talked about it for decades. You know, you are working to motivate talent, to have them dream about big aspirations. But those aspirations, they could only reach them somewhere else. Now, it's about the pathway that's created, where now young talent, both on and off the court, can dream about becoming professional around the industry, but becoming professional right here on the continent. So once you aggregate all the talent, how do you sustain it? Through, you know, really innovation. You know, we have to innovate and leapfrog based on what we've learned for decades working in the NBA. He won a championship. We tend to forget that just in 2019 with the Toronto Raptors. You know, coming back here and bringing that, not only that expertise, but that inspiration to other young people. And I'm not just talking about players on the court, but people who can now think about how do we become managers of the sport? How do we engineer the success that we see athletes have? How do we engineer that success in managers, in marketeers, in people who are partnership specialists, broadcast people, you know? I mean, what you're doing is amazing. How do we get that now across the continent to have more young girls to aspire to become usher and other presenters? Because you got to sell the product once you build it. That's the critical piece. And be able to attract the right partners. That's how you sustain it. Partnership is the key to all this. But how do you find the right partners? And again, I'm going to be repetitive. What we have in Rwanda is unique. And this is why we keep coming back. So, you know, this is a blueprint to show that it is possible to do it. The talent is here. That's the #1 ingredient we needed. Now the infrastructure is being built. You know, Kigali Arena, you know, what else? What's the next step? Let's continue to mine the local talent and retain that talent. And if you have a league like the Basketball Africa League, you may have a chance. Now these young players are no longer going to go to Qatar or, you know, some of these places that they go just because they just want to get out of the continent. We have to make the environment attractive enough where no talented young player is going to feel a sense of desperation, you know, to just get out of here. They're happy to sign a contract anywhere outside of Africa. That's what we need to change. That's what we need to change in order to give ourselves a chance to build this industry.
It's interesting you talk about that, Amadou. Chinelo, I'm coming to you. How can we have sustainable investment in sports from government and the private sector, but also how do we go beyond domestic investment and attract international investment?
Thank you very much, Osha. That's right up my street for what we do at the Africa Investment Forum. And that's a flagship initiative of the African Development Bank with 7 other founding partners. We're actively seeking to promote transactions on the continent and with a focus on facilitating deals, raising capital, and ensuring that these deals accelerated to close. And we have turned our eye on the sports industry simply because you can't ignore it. And there will be need to harness what we have on the continent into clear business envelopes to be able to have people drop in to them. And part of what we do, it's not one or the other, not the government, not the private sector, but both working together cohesively in one voice to promote deals. And in the sports industry, it's very easy. And when I say easy is that it's very easy to demarcate which is which and also point out how they can come together. For instance, the government, what we are pushing now across the 54 countries on the continent is to ensure that there's a deliberate intervention in the policies that guard sports in the country. From policies for integration into the national development plans, the national development strategy, as small or as big as they may be, from incentives, tax breaks, from allocation of resources to build infrastructure. These things don't come cheap, but the government always starts with the first steps of that allocation, deliberately so. And then also an invitation to the private sector to join. I keep coming back to Nigeria, but the government has put down stadia across the country. And all of a sudden now, what we find, due to the push of the Minister of Sports in Nigeria, we just had the richest man in Africa take on to develop the Abuja Stadium, which is big, and having been built, I'm not certain enough allocation was made for its maintenance. And so we'll bring in the private sector right now. They're doing altruistically, but we need to elevate that for a profit focus so that it's no longer charity, but a business plan. But in the first instance, when Aliko Dangote takes on a charitable donation of $1 million to maintain the Abuja Stadium, there's a gentleman, I think Baba Ijebu, who's doing the same in Surulere, clearing it out. It's a signal to the rest of the private sector to start looking at how you can commercialize this and put in your investment and make sure you remove returns out of it. And this is one way that the private sector can come in. And then it's also in sustainability. You cannot rely on charity for sustainability. It won't happen because it then is dependent on the mood and the interest of the, and that's why we are also right now working on various business initiatives that will encourage investments into the sector, showing a clear path of returns on those investments so that businessmen will take cognizance of that fact and invest in the sports industry. And having said that, my final point, which I think also both the government and I think back to the talent we're talking about, because they remain at the heart of the industry. Protection of that talent in terms of intellectual property rights, media rights, sponsorship rights, so that they are not exploited. And once we can focus on that, then you can attract international resources. What we often see is that everybody lays back and expects international resources to come in, when we haven't even mopped up the considerable domestic resources on the continent. And that's, I think, what we need to focus, and then focus on ensuring that those athletes, their managers, and these are the business angles to this sports business, are educated enough in the nuances of legal contracts so as to protect the talents while they're at their peak, and especially when they're not. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Chinelo. I'm coming to you, Luol. Since you took over as president of South Sudan Basketball, there's been incredible, immense growth. And just recently, you're the highest mover on the FIBA rankings. Congratulations on that, Luol. Since you're now involved with the grassroots and professional level of basketball in South Sudan, how has your perspective changed in terms of what needs to be done to advance sports? What are the challenges, and how can you overcome that?
I was hoping you asked me the same question because, you know, sitting next to two smart people, I was just going to steal answers and add on, but no, but to go to what you're saying, it goes back to my first answer earlier. I think that, first of all, I'm very lucky to take over a federation that's very talented in terms of, you know, talent and players abroad. Because of what we've been through as a country, South Sudan, it goes back to a lot of my players that I'm selecting for the national team are players that grew up in Australia, grew up in the UK, or grew up in America, grew up in Canada. They are still South Sudanese, but what that makes us realize in South Sudan and Africa is that the talent is there. The only difference is they went abroad for a different reason, just like myself, but they found facilities and coaching. As much as we are proud of what we have, it makes us realize of what we don't have in terms of the quality of facilities, the quality of coaching, and this is what everybody's talking about here, protecting what's at home. The quality of coaching is there. It's just nobody has focused in the past in that aspect. We constantly talk about the talent in sports because we can see it. You walk outside and you see somebody running, you automatically see the athlete in them, but it's hard to see, just how smart an individual is when it comes to coaching or whatever opportunity that you give them. And that's something that I'm realizing, being back home and taking over the federation, we're successful because everything has been there. I've been through, I played in the NBA for 15 years, so I know what it takes for a team to be successful or what it takes for a basketball federation to rise up. But again, we didn't invent anything that wasn't there. And when it comes to talent across Africa, it goes back to how much investment is being put in. There's no difference between South Sudan, Senegal, Rwanda, Nigeria. The talent is there. It's just the infrastructure and how we focus on it. So, all the success that we've had, we're very proud and we'll continue to display that. But it also, for me, being part of taking over the federation, part of it is to show South Sudan that we should do more, we have to do more. And part of it is bringing, our athletes and Africans back to give back to their country and their continent. When you see Amadou, when you see Masai coming back to the continent, when I come back to the continent, individuals will keep on coming back in the future. And that's how it's our responsibility to take care of that. So that's what I believe in.
Thank you so much, Luol. Now, Chinelo, I'm coming to you. We're currently in a country that is at the forefront of having women leaders in the private sector and in government. And just to be very specific, we have the Honorable Sports Minister of Rwanda, Madame Aurore, and the CEO of RDB, Claire Kamanzi, and the Vice President of the Rwanda Basketball Federation, there, Pascal. What is the significance of having women in these positions and, having young girls dream about getting to positions like this, especially in sports?
Thank you very much for that. And probably as the only woman on the panel, minus yourself, it had to be my question. But I'm happy that you have brought this up because I'm particularly honored to be in Rwanda, which is such a good example of what you can achieve with gender inclusivity. And the fact that they have actually entrenched it in law, entrenched it in practice, is testament to the beautiful, well-organized, clean city that we see every time we land in Rwanda. But beyond that, it's something that we have taken very seriously. And at the very start of my assignment at the Africa Investment Forum, I was fortunate to have met with former President Sirleaf. And her admonition was very clear. We need to focus on the women, and we need to focus on them with empathy, with deliberateness, and also with encouragement. And in the business sector, this is what I have seen. The brightest ideas probably come from the women. But they have dealt with so many times when they're asked not to dream beyond a certain enclave. And I'm happy to see that it's happening now. At the virtual boardrooms we had earlier on in March, we had about 9 women-led deals, nearly $5 billion, many of which were subscribed. And it shows that things are working. And then to the field of sports, on-field, off-field. For someone like me who hates to break a sweat, you will not catch me on a basketball court, you will not catch me on the field. But I think involvement in sports goes beyond the field. For instance, look at you, Usher. You're holding down a strong quote. I'm looking at the managerial capacity. I wanted to see a female Masai. and see a female of Gallo. But in terms of the business itself, I think there's a clear case for women because their innate ability to multitask, run businesses, run rooms, and then in coaching. What we also need to actively push forward is to the presence of women in coaching because the skill also must go in tandem with the belief, the innate belief that you can succeed. And I don't know that women do that a lot more, to nurture individuals to the point that they can dare beyond what is physically available. Because in most competitive sports, it is always that last 10 seconds that determines who wins or who scores or who shoots a basketball. So in terms of promoting women as investment champions in the business of sports, it's something that we are already actively focusing on and will enjoin all of us, not just the women, but also the men who are in this room and continually push women forward in order to achieve a more robust society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chanel. Now, to keep the conversation going, I'm coming to you, Masai. Back in 2003, you were part of the Africa 100 camp in Johannesburg, and you kept saying, NBA, we're coming. 19 years down the road, here we are with a professional league in Africa. How do you feel about the progress of what's become of everything that you started back in the day?
Oh, okay, I don't know if I started, but I'm not going to even answer your question that way. I'm going to do something different that we don't do normally in this panel. So I'll go to different people. Here's the rule of the game I'm going to play now. If I come to you and ask you a question, you have 1 minute. I know you Africans, you like to talk. So I'm going to be standing next to you, okay? I'm going to be standing next to you, and I'll time you, okay? And that's how I'm going to answer this question, how far we've come. I'll come to Kyle. Kyle is here. Kyle is QA Solutions. They manage the arena, Kigali Arena, and a couple other arenas, Dakar Arena. And it is somewhere where we need to go in sports, right? Facilities in Africa are not managed. They're not managed. We build and we leave them. So, Kyle, you're going to talk 1 minute, okay, about what great things you've been doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Masai. So I definitely consider myself a young guy in this industry. And the one thing I have heard is always speed it up, speed it up. So here we are again. I've got a minute. Look, I mean, we in business, right? And I really enjoy what's been said on the panel. We far too often have been considered a leisure, a recreational sport. And I think it's about time that we are considered a business. And it takes us as individuals moving forward what has been done over the past 20 years. I mean, for me to see Masai and Amadou on this stage, they've paved the way for us to move this continent forward from a sporting perspective. And I think it takes that thought pattern of saying this is a business. This is something that we can move the continent forward with. We have got talent everywhere, everywhere. I'm sure if all of us got into the gym and put our minds to it, there'd be a couple of NBA players out of this room. And honestly, that's all it takes, is providing that platform, providing the pathway for a individual to see themselves from where they are to the end point. And we don't have that on the continent. And having seen what Masai and Amadou have done on the continent, I think it's our responsibility to take it to that point. And that's what we do as a business. We are creating the platform. We can't do everything, but what we can do is manage buildings. And that's what we're doing. We're doing it so that our people can find themselves through all of these challenges that are presented on a daily basis, to be able to come back to their community. Why do they have to leave their homes? I mean, you take a kid, you put him in the US, and he's got to perform at the highest level. He doesn't have his mother behind him. his father. Why? You know, we got to do it here in Africa.
That was 2 minutes, man. NBA Africa new CEO, Victor. Tell us some of the things, the challenges that you've had in Africa here, trying to start this business, trying to build partnerships, trying to, I think, grow here, especially in infrastructure. For us, this is really important with us, especially in, I want to say even mimicking the NBA. How can we get that in Africa here? 1 minute, Sir Victor.
Wow. That's a very tall order, Masai. But to pick up on some of the points that were made earlier, I think for us to get to where we want to get to, in terms of having a strong, sustainable ecosystem that is anchored on world-class infrastructure, all the various elements of the ecosystem have to come together. Government is very important. And as Amadou has said, one of the reasons we're here in Rwanda is because of what the government has clearly done to build terrific infrastructure. The private sector is important because government is not always going to be a funder. And so in Africa, we need to develop business models that enable the private sector to find a sustainable way to invest in infrastructure and to grow it. Cities, municipalities, communities are important because once you build the infrastructure, in order to get the maximum benefit of it, the infrastructure has to be part of a plan for how a neighborhood, an area can be developed and how it can all together work to generate economic activity. And then at the grassroots level, it's important that we create opportunities for kids to play. And sometimes that's courts, sometimes that's relatively low-cost stadiums. And that's an area where, again, the government, public sector, private sector, but also the sports associations need to play a role in setting out a vision that all those players can buy into. Was that 1 minute?
It's about 3. Thanks, Victor. Remy, you just opened the office in NBA Africa, in NBA Nigeria, under NBA Africa. Tell us what you're doing in Nigeria. 1 minute. You're my girl, and I'm not allowing you to go over. She's a lady, so she can do. So.
Thanks, Masai. So for Nigeria, a big part of our mandate, and sort of to what Victor and Amadou has said, is being intentional about making sure that the game of basketball is accessible to girls and boys across Nigeria. And a big part of that is not just through our junior NBA programs, but how can we partner with the Ministry of Education to make sure that we include sports, specifically basketball, in their curriculum after-school programs. So we're doing that. We're having interesting conversations around that. Secondly, around the ecosystem with Nigeria, particularly is making sure that as the NBA, how can we influence the different aspects of it? Because of who we are and what we represent, we have the ability to shift the needle in a way others cannot. So in terms of whether it's how can we influence from a policy perspective, what are the things we can do in regards to that? I think a lot of people are aware here of the ban, the self-imposed ban that the Minister of Sports in Nigeria and that the president announced about 2 weeks ago. So it's how do we ensure that as an entity we're able to sort of get the right people on the table and have those conversations that going forward they understand the implication of decisions like that. So we're doing that. Then I would say most importantly at the end of the day is the basketball economy. One amazing thing about basketball is it brings literally, it crosses across all industries. So how do we impact that to make sure that whether it's from a music standpoint, fashion standpoint, all those different touch points that as the NBA we're able to influence that. So that's what we're doing right now in a nutshell.
Great job. That's awesome. So we have some of us, like that have relationships with the higher ranks on the continent, and then fortunate to even have jobs. Dongo, advisor to President Macky Sall, NBA player, former NBA player, that now you can actually advise an African president on some of the things that we need to do to take sports serious on the continent. 1 minute. He's a politician, I know. So this one I'm going to time. This is a politician aspiring. I'm going to time this one.
Thank you, Masai. Thank you. I'm very excited. And be careful, when you have a politician excited, the time cannot be 1 minute. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited because we are in good hands. The whole conversation is great, but the setting is better because we have great people. Only sport can unite. We have great leaders today, and the way was long, but the future is great, and I can see it, I can sense it. We've come a long way, Masai. We've come a long way, and today, sports have made something unbelievable in this continent. We are 77% young people, 35 and under. 77% of the continent is 35 and under. The age medium is 18. That means 50% of the continent is under 18 years. So it is just smart to invest in sports. So what all you guys are doing as a private sector, inviting the private sector in sports, is helping government. Because 20 years ago, only government was doing this. Sports was a public thing. Sports was only reserved to government here in this continent. However, I want to invite you, all of us, to move forward a little bit quicker and a little bit stronger in order to bring a new pride in Africa. Because we cannot stop young people from taking the boats just by creating jobs here. We have to create pride. And the best way to create pride in this continent is to bring the big events here. That's why I really like the BL, because not only it is a great thing, but it brings the event here. The bestest thing, the biggest thing are just not made outside. It's made here. I want the World Cup of basketball to be run here. I don't know who is here, but tell the world that we want to bring the World Cup. We want to play the Olympics here. The best things are not happening outside. It's going to happen here. We got to have home court. Home court. So thank you, Masai, for having us. Thank you.
There you go, the politician now. Huh? The politician's always different, huh? Claire, you know I'm coming to you. You know I'm coming to you. Yeah. Very influential here and has done well for us, I think, in even putting these things, some of these things together. I want to ask you, sports is playing a big part, and even we're going to see His Excellency here, but you do a lot of the groundwork here. How do you see even sports growing more? How do we extend what is happening in Rwanda here even further out?
Thank you, Masai. I think when he was saying we want the championship to happen here, he meant Rwanda, right? So I think for us, it's about Visit Rwanda. I'm from the Rwanda Development Board, and our job is to make you all visit Rwanda. So first of all, thank you for visiting Rwanda. So 2 years ago, we didn't have a department for sports tourism in RDB. Today, we have a department of sports tourism. I think what that tells you is the vision that we see that sports can contribute to tourism. And when you all come here, not only do you enjoy a good basketball game in a nice arena like Kigali Arena, but you get to consume our food, our drinks. Please do more of that and go to all the restaurants. you go to use our taxis, you buy internet. So it's a really big industry that can contribute to economic development, and that's why we're investing in it. Just that. Thank you. 1 minute, right?
Yes. Thank you, Claire. I want to say this. You know, everybody has played a big part in what we're doing on the continent. Everybody has played a huge, huge part. We need to grow on this continent. We need to grow. How do we have Arsenal and Manchester United and all these guys having the most fans in Africa? Yeah, they have the most fans in Africa. Yeah, and we have the players. We have Luol, Deng. We have Giannis Adetokounmpo. I want to recognize Alex Sarasis. Alex, can you get up? Yeah, I'm going to embarrass you. That's Giannis Adetokounmpo's agent. And I want to make this clear here. I can't see Giannis walking, that tall boy, and they say, like Luol said, Greek freak. No, he's an African freak. That's what he is. He's African. When I see the African players that we have in the NBA, I see the African players that we have everywhere. We need to encourage that here. And that's why we have the BAL League here. Yeah, this league is going to grow and it's going to be big. It's going to be huge. I hand it back to you. That was your question. Did I answer it?
Very smart, Masai. Very smart way of answering. Thank you so much to everyone who gave a lot of insight there. So I'd like to thank the panelists. Thank you, Amadou. Thank you, Chinelo. And thank you, Luol, for your contributions today. Appreciate it.